She helped her best friend survive a breakup with the very man who is now falling in love with her. She knows every one of his flaws, because she heard them all from the woman he broke. And now, every time he takes her hand, she hears her friend's voice. He used to do that with me. Love showed up in the wrong place. And the more real it becomes, the heavier the guilt gets. How far can someone go before realizing they're living the story they swore they'd never betray? Welcome to Lost Stories in Lyrics, the place where emotional stories will touch your heart. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and smash that subscribe button. Megan woke to the insistent buzz of her alarm and reached out to silence it before the sound could wake Taylor, who was sleeping on the couch in the living room. It was 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, and this was the 11th night her best friend had spent in her apartment. Megan got up quietly, went to the kitchen, and made coffee, just as she had every morning since Taylor showed up at her door 3 weeks earlier with swollen eyes and a hastily packed suitcase. Megan's life had always been meticulously organized. She woke up early, drank her coffee while checking client emails, slipped into one of her tailored suits, and headed out to show properties around the city. At 29, she had built a solid reputation as a real estate agent. Clients sought her out not just for her efficiency, but for the warm way she turned the search for a house into something personal and meaningful. Megan had a gift for seeing beyond square footage and numbers. She saw homes where others only saw walls. Her apartment reflected that same attention to detail, bright and airy, with plants lining the windows, framed photos of happy moments with friends and family, and a bookshelf full of novels she had actually read. Everything in her world had a place, a purpose. Including Taylor, her best friend since college, the one person who knew every version of Megan, the vulnerable one, the ambitious one, the one who danced barefoot at parties and cried during romantic movies. That's why, when Taylor called one night in March with a voice broken by tears, Megan dropped everything and went to get her. Because that's what best friends did. Always. Megan poured 2 cups of coffee and walked into the living room, where Taylor was already awake, wrapped in a blanket and staring out the window. Her blonde hair was a mess, and she was wearing the same t-shirt from the day before. Megan sat beside her and offered the mug. "Thanks," Taylor murmured, holding the cup with both hands as if she needed the warmth just to stay whole. "Did you sleep at all?" Megan asked, already knowing the answer from the exhaustion in her friend's face. "Not really." Taylor took a sip and sighed. "I dreamed about him again. This time it was our wedding day. I was ready, in my dress, and he just never showed up." Megan's chest tightened. She knew every detail of that story because she had lived through every stage of Taylor's pain. She knew Austin had proposed at a seaside restaurant, that they had planned an entire life together, even picked out baby names for children who didn't exist yet. And she knew it all collapsed when Austin decided he wasn't ready, that he needed to find himself before committing, a cruel cliché that left Taylor shattered. "He doesn't deserve space in your dreams," Megan said, slipping an arm around her shoulders. "I know. I just can't control it." Taylor rested her head against Megan's shoulder. "How do you just erase 3 years of your life? How do you forget the person you loved the most?" Megan didn't have an answer. She just held Taylor's hand and stayed there in silence, offering the only thing she could, her steady presence. In the weeks that followed, that became their new routine. Megan showed houses during the day, kept her professional smile, closed deals. At night, she came home and became Taylor's emotional anchor. They talked late, watched silly movies, ate pizza straight from the box. Megan canceled plans, postponed dinners with other friends, put her own life on hold to make sure Taylor didn't sink completely. And it worked. Slowly, Taylor began to smile again. She moved back to her own apartment, returned to her job as a graphic designer, met friends for coffee. The wound was still there, but it wasn't bleeding as much. Megan felt a genuine sense of pride watching her best friend rebuild herself, even if it was slow. It was on a morning in June, 3 months after the breakup, that everything changed. Megan had an important meeting with a corporate client interested in buying a commercial property downtown. The agent originally handling the account was on medical leave, and Megan had been assigned to take over. She arrived at the company's sleek office 15 minutes early, reviewed her notes, and waited in reception. When the conference room door opened, Megan stood with her professional smile already in place. And then she saw who the client was. Austin. He froze too, blue eyes widening in instant recognition. The air left Megan's lungs. She knew his face from the countless photos Taylor had shown her. The way his brown hair fell slightly over his forehead, the crooked smile, the confident posture. But the photos didn't do him justice. In person, Austin had a presence that filled the room, tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a perfectly tailored gray suit that emphasized his athletic build. "Megan," he said, genuine surprise in his voice. "Austin." She forced herself to stay composed, even as her heart raced. "I didn't realize you were the client. I didn't know you were the agent either." He extended his hand, and Megan shook it professionally, ignoring the warmth of his touch. "Taylor's told me a lot about you. It's nice to finally meet you in person." Taylor's name hit like cold water. Megan nodded, recovered her posture, and led the way into the conference room. For the next hour they discussed specs, pricing, timelines. Austin was articulate, sharp, asked thoughtful questions. And Megan caught herself, more than once, admiring not just his professionalism, but the way his eyes lit up when he talked about his projects, his low, easy laugh, the way he gave her his full attention. When the meeting ended, Austin walked her to the elevator. "Thanks for the presentation. That was really helpful," he said. "You're welcome. I'll send the additional documents by email today." "Perfect." He hesitated, as if he wanted to say more, then just nodded when the elevator doors opened. "See you soon, Megan." She stepped inside and waited for the doors to close before letting out the breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the lobby button. That encounter had unsettled her in a way she couldn't quite name. That night, when Taylor called to talk about a new project at work, Megan didn't mention seeing Austin. She told herself it was to avoid reopening old wounds, that there was no reason to worry her friend over something purely professional. But deep down, a small, uneasy part of her knew she was hiding something. And that thought kept her awake. The professional emails between Megan and Austin became more frequent. He asked about other properties, requested her opinion on locations, investment ideas. Messages that started strictly formal slowly picked up personal touches. Austin commented on a restaurant Megan had mentioned in passing. She replied with a similar recommendation. He thanked her and suggested they have lunch there to talk about more properties. Megan agreed. And it was at that lunch, on a sunny afternoon in July, that the line between professional and personal began to blur for good. Austin was funny, attentive, genuinely interested in her beyond business. He asked about her family, why she chose real estate, what she dreamed about. And Megan, against every alarm going off in her head, answered honestly. She talked about growing up in a big family, about her passion for creating homes for others, about wanting one day to have a family of her own. And when Austin looked at her with those blue eyes and said he admired her passion, something dangerous and inappropriate lit up in her chest. 2 days later, Taylor called in tears. She had seen a photo of Austin on social media, smiling at a work event with colleagues. The wound that seemed to be healing had split open again. "Why does he look so happy?" Taylor sobbed. "Why am I still here, falling apart, and he just moves on like I never existed?" Megan sat on the couch, phone pressed to her ear, and a wave of guilt washed over her. Because she knew things Taylor didn't. She knew Austin wasn't as fine as he looked, because he had told her over lunch that he panicked, that he regretted the breakup, that he still thought about Taylor. But Megan couldn't share that. She couldn't betray Austin's confidence or give Taylor false hope. "He's a coward," Megan said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "And you deserve so much better than someone who walked away when you needed him most." She spent the next evening at Taylor's place, watching movies and eating ice cream straight from the carton. When she got home at 2 a.m., she found a message from Austin asking if she'd like to have dinner with him that weekend. Megan stared at the message for a long time. She knew she should refuse. She knew it wasn't just a business dinner, that something else was happening between them, something that shouldn't be happening. But her fingers typed, yes, before her mind could stop them. And in that moment, sitting alone in her quiet apartment, Megan realized she was stepping into territory she might not be able to leave. A place where every choice had consequences, where every feeling carried the weight of an invisible betrayal. Because how could she look Taylor in the eyes, the person she held while her world fell apart, and hide that she was falling for the very man who caused that pain? The answer came fast and brutal: she couldn't. And yet, even knowing that, even feeling the knot of guilt tightening in her stomach, Megan couldn't stop. Because for the first time in a long while, she felt something beyond the controlled routine of her life. She felt alive, wanted, deeply connected in a way that terrified and thrilled her at once. And as the dinner date approached, Megan wavered between excitement and dread, knowing she was about to cross a line that could never be undone. The restaurant Austin chose was in a quiet neighborhood far from downtown, nowhere near the places Megan and Taylor usually went. She noticed it the moment he sent the address, and part of her felt relieved by that unspoken precaution. Another part felt the guilt grow heavier, because choosing somewhere hidden meant they both knew, without saying it, that this had to stay secret. Megan changed outfits 3 times before leaving. She wanted to look beautiful, but not like she tried too hard. Elegant, but casual. Interested, but not desperate. She finally settled on a simple navy dress and a leather jacket. She twisted her brown hair into a loose bun and kept her makeup soft. In the mirror, she saw a woman who looked confident, but whose eyes betrayed the anxiety racing through her. Austin was already waiting when she arrived. He stood immediately, his smile lighting up his face in a way that made Megan's heart speed up. He wore a white button-down with the sleeves rolled to his elbows and dark jeans, and there was a relaxed ease to him she'd never seen in their business meetings. "You look beautiful," he said, the sincerity in his voice making her blush. "Thank you. You look good too." They sat, and for the first few minutes the conversation flowed easily: the menu, the weather, small talk. But Megan felt the unspoken tension between them, the awareness that this dinner was different from all the others. Austin was the first to break it. "Megan, I need to be honest with you," he said, turning his wineglass slowly in his fingers. "I didn't invite you here just to talk about business." Her heart raced. "I know. You do." He gave a small, almost shy smile that made him look vulnerable. "Since the moment we met, I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. And I know this is complicated. Extremely complicated. Because of Taylor." Hearing her best friend's name felt like a punch to the stomach. Megan looked down at her plate, unable to meet his eyes. "It's more than complicated," she murmured. "It's impossible." "Why?" The question was simple, but heavy. Megan looked up and saw genuine expectation on his face. "Because she's my best friend. Because I held her while she cried over you night after night for months. Because I know every detail of what you two had and how much it hurt when it ended." The words poured out of her. "I can't just forget that. I can't pretend there isn't a huge history between you." Austin nodded slowly. "I understand. And I'm not asking you to forget. I haven't either. Taylor is, important to me. What we had was real. But it's over, Megan. It's been months. And I can't turn off what I feel for you just because there's a past." "And what do you feel?" she asked, barely above a whisper. He reached his hand across the table, palm up, a silent invitation. Megan stared at it, knowing that taking it meant crossing a line. And then, despite every warning in her head, she laced her fingers through his. The sensation was electric. The warmth of his skin, the firmness of his grip, the way he squeezed gently, like he was holding something precious. And instantly, cruelly, Taylor's voice echoed in her memory. "He always held my hand like that," Taylor had said one night through tears. "Like I was the most important thing in the world. I felt safe when he held my hand." Megan pulled away as if burned. "I can't," she said, her voice shaking. "I'm sorry, Austin. I just can't." She grabbed her purse and left before he could respond, before the tears could fall. She locked herself in her car and cried, a tangled mess of frustration, desire, and guilt. Her phone buzzed. A message from Austin: "I'm sorry for putting you in that position. I never meant to hurt you." Then another, from Taylor: "Thank you for always being there for me. You're the best friend anyone could ask for. I love you." Megan tossed the phone onto the passenger seat and drove home on autopilot, feeling like she was being torn in half. In the days that followed, she tried to keep her distance. She replied to Austin's emails strictly professionally, avoided in-person meetings, passed some of her projects to other agents. But Austin was persistent in a gentle way, never pushing, just staying present at the edges of her life, reminding her he existed. And the cruel truth was that Megan didn't want to forget him. 2 weeks later, Taylor asked her out for coffee. They met at their favorite cafe, where they'd spent countless hours talking about everything and nothing. Taylor looked genuinely better, lighter, brighter. "I think I've finally moved on," Taylor said, stirring her drink. "It took time, but I'm getting there. And it's because of you, Meg. You saved me when I was drowning." Megan forced a smile, guilt tightening in her chest. That night, alone with a bottle of wine, she wondered what would happen if she told the truth. The next morning, she asked Austin to meet her for coffee, determined to end it. But when he looked at her with that vulnerable intensity and asked her for a chance, just a chance, something in her broke. "One chance," she said. "But if this hurts Taylor in any way, it ends. Immediately." And that was how the secret relationship began. The first weeks were intoxicating and terrifying. They met in hidden places, talked for hours, fell deeper with every shared story and stolen touch. Austin was attentive in ways Megan had never known. And the physical connection left her breathless. But guilt never left her. One afternoon, Taylor invited Megan over for lunch and announced she'd met someone new. "I'm happy for you," Megan said, and she meant it, even as the guilt deepened. Later that night, Austin held her and said, "It's good that she's moving on. But we're still hiding," Megan whispered. "For now," he said. "Not forever." Megan wanted to believe him. Weeks later, in the yard of a house they were visiting together, Austin held her hand and talked about building a future. And suddenly Megan heard Taylor's voice in her head again, talking about holding hands and imagining Christmas trees and children's rooms. Megan pulled away. "You did this with her," she said. "You're doing the same things with me." She couldn't breathe around it. "Maybe this was a mistake," she whispered. "A beautiful one. But still a mistake." That night, she called Taylor and asked to meet. They walked through a park at sunset. "You okay?" Taylor asked. "Just work," Megan lied. Taylor smiled. "You deserve someone amazing, Meg. Someone who loves you the way you love everyone else." Taylor hugged her, and Megan cried in her arms. And there, held by the person she loved like family, Megan finally understood the truth. No matter how real her feelings for Austin were, she could never be with him without carrying the unbearable weight of that betrayal. She was trapped between two loves she couldn't reconcile, and for the first time in her life, she had no idea how to choose without destroying someone she loved. The days that followed were the loneliest Megan had ever known. She didn't speak to Austin, ignored his calls and texts, and buried herself in work as if exhaustion could quiet the thoughts that haunted her. But at night, when everything finally went still, it all came rushing back: the memory of his touch, the sound of his laugh, the way his eyes lit up when he looked at her. And with those memories came the image of Taylor trusting her completely, never suspecting that her best friend had fallen in love with the man who had once broken her heart. It was on a rainy October morning, 3 weeks after pulling away, that Megan made her decision. Standing by her apartment window, watching the rain streak down the glass, she realized something she could no longer avoid. She would never be able to love Austin freely while every moment with him carried the shadow of his past with Taylor. It wasn't his fault. Austin wasn't trying to replace anyone, his feelings were real. But Megan carried the weight of knowing both sides of the story, of having been Taylor's confidant and then Austin's lover, and that contradiction was tearing her apart. Their relationship had been born in secrecy, and Megan understood that even if they told the truth, even if Taylor someday forgave them, the guilt would never fully leave her. The problem wasn't only that she had fallen for her best friend's ex, it was that she had hidden it, that she had let Taylor trust her while she quietly betrayed that trust for months. She picked up her phone and texted Austin, "We need to talk. In person." His reply came seconds later. When and where? They met in the same park where Megan had once walked with Taylor weeks earlier. Austin was already there, sitting on a bench beneath a tree. When he saw her, his face lit up, until he noticed how serious she looked. "Hey," he said, standing. "Hey." They stood facing each other, the physical space between them mirroring the emotional distance she felt. "I've been thinking a lot," Megan said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "About us. About Taylor. About everything. And I've come to a decision." Austin nodded, his shoulders tense. "I love you, Austin. That's true. As true as anything I've ever felt. And I believe you love me too." But, her voice wavered, and she took a breath. "But I can't build our happiness on someone else's hurt. Every time I'm with you, Taylor is there, invisible, but present. And it isn't fair to any of us. Not to me, living split between guilt and desire. Not to you, who deserves someone who can love you without holding anything back. And not to Taylor." "So what are you saying?" Austin asked, even though he already knew. "I'm saying I'm choosing my friendship with Taylor. I'm choosing the person who's been by my side for years, who trusts me completely." Tears slipped down her face, and she didn't wipe them away. "And that means I can't be with you. Not now. Not ever. Even if we told the truth. Even if someday she accepted it. I would always know how this started. I would always carry that guilt." Austin was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was heavy with sadness and understanding. "I get it. I don't like it, but I get it." He stepped closer, stopping just inches from her. "You're a better person than I deserve, Megan. And that loyalty, that willingness to put the people you love first, even when it hurts, that's part of why I fell for you." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Don't be. You're doing the right thing." He hesitated, then gently brushed a tear from her cheek. "I just wish. I wish we'd met at a different time. Without all this history." "Me too." They held each other one last time, a goodbye filled with love, regret, and the sadness of something that could never fully exist. Then Megan pulled away, knowing that staying longer would only make it harder. "Take care, Austin." "You too, Megan. And, thank you. For being honest. Even when it was hard." She nodded and walked away without looking back, afraid her resolve might falter if she did. The weeks that followed were a kind of mourning. Megan cried alone at night, letting herself feel the loss. But she also kept going, getting up, going to work, seeing friends, holding on to routine. Slowly, the sharp pain softened into a quiet sadness she learned to live with. Taylor noticed the change. "You've been kind of quiet lately," she said one afternoon. "Is everything okay?" For a moment, Megan considered telling her everything. But she knew the truth would only ease her own conscience by hurting Taylor for no reason. The relationship with Austin was over. Telling it now would only destroy trust that no longer needed to be tested. So Megan chose differently. She chose to carry that secret alone. "Just work stuff," she said. "But I'm okay. Really." Taylor studied her, then nodded. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here. Always." "I know. Thank you." Months later, on a warm spring afternoon, Megan was showing a house to a young couple when her phone buzzed. A text from Taylor, "Guess what? James just officially asked me to be his girlfriend. I'm so happy, Meg." Megan smiled, a real smile this time, without guilt behind it, and sent her congratulations. That night, alone at home, she thought about everything she had lost, and everything she had kept. Yes, she had lost Austin. Lost a relationship that might have been extraordinary. But she had protected something even more valuable, her integrity, her friendship with Taylor, and the knowledge that when it mattered most, she had chosen what was right, not what was easy. She learned that love is not always enough. That sometimes history, loyalty, and timing carry more weight than passion. And that some inner battles have no winners, only choices we must live with. Megan wasn't completely healed. She still thought of Austin sometimes, especially on quiet nights. But the pain no longer ruled her. It became understanding. It became growth. And when she later heard, through mutual friends, that Austin was seeing someone new, she felt only a soft ache of nostalgia, and a sincere hope that he would be happy. Because in the end, Megan understood that real love, romantic or otherwise, is not about possession or choosing between people. It's about honoring the bonds we build, respecting the stories we share, and having the courage to sacrifice when necessary. She loved Austin. That was true. But she loved even more the person she was when she stood beside Taylor, honest, loyal, and whole. And that choice, painful as it was, gave her something she hadn't expected: peace. The peace of knowing that when she was tested, she chose integrity over desire, loyalty over passion. Life went on. And Megan went on too, carrying her invisible scars as reminders that growth often comes disguised as loss, and that the hardest choices are often the ones that define us most. Enjoyed the video? Smash that like button and subscribe for more awesome stories. I'll be waiting for you in the next story.